Welcome back, gang, to Nopes and Opes. I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Hylan.
Yep.
And Lancelot. Today, we talk a little bit about Sphere of Influence, which we are going to be revisiting here in some coming episodes. It's been mentioned a lot recently, and we've gotten a lot of new subscribers, and we want to revisit it.
I think some of the major kind of concepts that we talked about in the book, and maybe just some other concepts as well, but
kind of reflect what we see now versus when we first read it, which are coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. But in this episode, we talk about sphere of influence and this idea of hyper awareness and how I'm kind of very hyper aware. Hylan is hyper aware, and kind of like how we interact with the world and the things we think about when we're interacting with them, and kind of the lessons that we've learned while doing so.
And I am freaking hyper aware right now that I loved this episode. I think if you do invest the time to watch this, I think it'll be really interesting and beneficial to you.
No.
So.
Absolutely. So the thing I'm interested about this topic is that I don't know if it's necessarily sphere of influence. I mean, it is sphere of influence, but we had a discussion recently on the podcast about sphere of influence and how you can kind of make your impact in it. And I recently had a situation come up where I was around a sphere of influence and we've categorized the sphere of influence differently by like saying there's layers to it. And in this situation, I was kind of with people that are, I would say, on the third layer, the outer layer, the outer rim. And some just interesting insights that I had that I was aware of that just kind of came up recently. And that's kind of what this is about, this episode.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think before we even begin, like just kind of give an idea of how we define the third layer. Like the first layer is basically family, right?
Friends, and I mean, I consider friends in the first layer, but like
people that we're most
hard,
intimate with.
I consider them family, even though they are friends.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And then second is kind of friends, colleagues, people that you
are fond of, close with,
know very well
to a certain degree.
Yeah. And then the third kind of tier or like circle, I guess, sphere, is just people that you come in contact with and you have interactions with that influence you, that you influence them, but not necessarily as influential.
Yeah. And so I was recently around this group. I don't want to say specifically, maybe I will, I don't know. But I was around this group in this third layer, and kind of the reason is because I'm trying to possibly fit in with them to a certain degree, but became very hyper aware. So this group doesn't do things that I necessarily agree with. Very big partiers and whatnot. And not that I don't like partying or anything like that, but I'm not necessarily someone that wants to get really, messed up and get high and super drunk all the time. Like if that's going to happen, it's very sparse, if at all.
Yeah.
Right. And so these people, like, they kind of do it frequently. Like it's kind of like their thing. And so when I was around these people, I didn't feel like I could truly be myself because they're still getting to know me. I don't know how I feel about them. And I just started to really think about like, how am I interacting with them? Like, am I making the right decision by trying to hang out with them? Is this like a good thing to do? Is this a bad thing to do? And just a lot of questions started to come up about how I interact with them. And so specifically, they reached a point. And so basically I'll paint the picture. Was hanging out with them, and the group had some of the people that smoked weed in the group. So the group as a whole, just there were some people that smelled of weed and whatnot. And we all go. And when we walk into this bar, they start getting drinks and playing darts and just having a jovial, good old time as a group. Nothing wrong with that. People enjoying themselves. That's all good. And I became like I'm a very hyper aware person of like my surroundings, who I'm around, and how I interact with people. And I kind of want to stop doing that. I think people that are always focused on how they interact in the world think about things almost too much, right? They don't actually like they're not present in the moment.
Hmm.
And so
Okay.
we were at this bar, and two patrons of the bar who had been there before we got there started essentially like talking crap about the group. And I was the only one that overheard this or was aware that it was happening.
Hmm.
And they were kind of trying to be loud about it, but passive aggressive, saying like, oh, a bunch of people just smoke and come into a bar and like ruin each other's time. I couldn't hear the exact words, but it was something along those lines. And not confronting anyone about it, but just they were assholes, right?
Yeah.
And so I noticed that was happening, and I was like,
Like
man,
not brave enough to be
yeah,
good
it's
assholes
the
though.
yeah, it's the worst. They're like,
Yeah.
no, come over to us and try and
Yeah.
complain about it.
If you have something to
Don't be
say,
like,
step
yeah,
up.
these people, like, isn't that the worst? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so basically, I was aware of this, and I started to like tell myself, like, Rowan, don't care. I mean, they're just two guys that are upset about the group. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, it's whatever. Don't care about it. Just be yourself. Don't read into it or anything. But like, I was still hyper aware of it. And it started to rub me the wrong way because I was like, Rowan, you gotta not give such a crap about these kind of things. Cause like I'm trying to do comedy right now. And a big part of me trying to do comedy is getting up on stage, doing my act, and essentially like going with the flow, being confident and not overthinking it and being critical about like, oh, do people think I'm funny? Am I fitting in with this group? Is my comedy relatable, et cetera, et cetera. And so, were you gonna say something?
I was.
Okay.
I'm trying to be more cognizant of not interrupting, but I don't think I'm going to be successful. But in this regard, I just have one question. Well, two questions actually. One question and one statement. The statement is, I think that I am very good at what I do because I am hyper aware. I'm always analyzing the situation. I'm very aware of how people are feeling, how they're reacting, what they're what they're looking for from me, what they need from me, what I can offer them in the moment. So I think like the being hyper aware for me is actually a huge benefit and
Mhm.
something that makes me very good at what I do. And then my question, I guess, becomes like, is it possible not to be that way? Because that's just naturally my inclination. That's just the way that I am. But like, is it possible? Is it possible not? Is it possible really to not care? Like people like students all the time say to me, like I don't care, and it's as a defense mechanism, right? And when they say that, that's actually a clue for me to kind of tune in and be like, ooh, okay, this is something that I need to pay attention to because they actually do care about it.
Yeah.
So like, is that a reasonable goal? And one is it a reasonable goal, and then two, is it even achievable? I I personally don't think it is because I have spent a lot of time my whole life trying to pretend that I don't care and that I'm pretty just calm and relaxed and whatever.
Just a
And I'm
chill guy.
and on the outside, I feel like that I've accomplished that pretty well. But the inside, there's always like the things that people say, the things that people do, whatever. The, the it has an effect,
Yeah.
right? Even if I'm smart enough in the moment to kind of intellectualize it and be like, Hylan, this person is not relevant to you. This person doesn't like this person should have no power over you
Right.
whatsoever. They do.
Yeah. That was that a question?
That's the end of my statement.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said my question is, and then you did
Oh,
a statement.
No, the question is it possible?
Oh,
And then two, if it is possible, is it a reasonable and attainable goal?
so I mean, as I said, I'm hyper aware. I don't know if it is possible. I think there's a level of just kind of like, so you say as you've grown older, you start to like not give a crap as much in certain situations, right? Um,
Most definitely.
I'm starting to see that about certain stuff for sure. But there are certain situations where I still am very kind of like hyper aware. And one of the reasons why I was so hyper aware of it in this situation was because I am a part of this group. this group walks into the bar and it disrupts the flow of the bar. Granted, I also work as a bartender, so like I'm also cognizant of how I interact with a bar because I'm like I know the kind of patrons that come into the bar that I don't like and the type of way they act. So it was
Yeah.
big for me. Like I don't want to come into a bar and just be like part of a group that is disrespectful or does something bad to
Right.
the bartender or the bar itself. And ultimately, we didn't do anything wrong, this group. But I can understand the smell of weed is very strong. Some people don't like that. It can be, disorienting. But for the sake of the bar, like everyone got drinks, they were paying, they were tipping. So, like, for instance, for the business, it was doing well. So that I was like, okay, I feel good about that. But being a part of this new sphere, if you will, makes me hyper aware because I go like, I am seen with these people. I'm associated with them. These are things that I need to be cognizant of how I interact with the environment around me.
Okay.
Because I also don't know these people that well, and I don't necessarily know that I can trust them and how they interact.
Yeah.
Because like I could go to the bar, and they could be the type of people that are just belligerent and loud and get kicked out a lot. I didn't get that impression. I eventually left. At some point, not when everyone else left, but before, because I just was kind of like, you know what? I've had my fun. I'm going to go home,
Mm.
which it was also like something I was proud of that I used to not be able to do. I always felt like I needed to stay around and be involved, FOMO and whatnot. And now I'm like, no, I had my fun. I'm okay with going home.
Oh, okay.
So to answer your question, is it possible? Probably, but I just think it comes with time and comfort. And in that situation, I wasn't necessarily comfortable.
So do you think that there are? I mean, I think there's so many people out there that pretend not to care. I think probably 95% of every character Matthew McConaughey has ever played has been like, "Hey man, like whatever, like
Yeah.
I don't care." And I get that, but like I just because I play that character too, and I think I do it really well. But the reality for me is not that like what's on the outside and what's on the inside don't line up exactly.
No.
And so I'm just wondering, like, are we all pretending, or are there actually people out there? Because if there are, I would love to attain that.
Mm.
Right, I would love to get to the point where, and I think it's strange because I think one of the huge benefits of getting older is you really don't care. You don't care as much,
Right.
I guess I'll say. Um and so yeah, that's a really interesting process, I guess, because I do care less than I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I would be hyper aware
Yeah.
of everything that people like. Just if I sensed people were looking at me wrong, right? I would be uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, you're just having a bad day or whatever, and can move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like if there are people out there that truly can go through their life and just be comfortable and never really let the way that others perceive them or think about them or interact with them kind of influence them in a negative way. Oh man, that would be a superpower I would take in a heartbeat.
I definitely think it is attainable. I've met people that say that, but do I know for a fact? No, because it's really hard to actually know what's going on internally. Like
I,
when they go home, are they like, "Oh my gosh, I did so bad today because this person was talking about this," or you never know.
well, yeah. So two questions. Um, One, like, um, do you have you ever met somebody and you believed that they just don't care?
Mm.
And then two, I think like a lot of the people that I've met that I feel like don't really care, oftentimes smoke a lot of weed and are pretty, um, just kind of stoned in nature. Like
Yeah.
not necessarily they have to be stoned, but just to have
Their personality is very kind of aloof.
that personality. And in a way, I think a lot of the reasons, the reasons that I used to smoke weed in the past is because I wanted to kind of attain that sense of peace and calmness, and that kind of image.
Mhm.
But I never got there.
Yeah.
Right. It's like I I could like smoke or whatever and play that character, but it was never the real deal.
Well, anytime I smoked weed, I was hyper aware, and it was not me being cool. It was me being like, I gotta get out of here.
Oh,
Like,
really?
oh yeah, it was never. But granted, like I've never really been like I never got high and went to a party. You know, I never like anytime I've smoked with people, it's been in like small groups. It's never been like a really big. But usually when I'm stoned, I'm more of a goofy guy. I've never really played the character of like I'm not really bothered. Like I'm just a chill dude. I've never played that character. And you know what? Maybe I should try. But I'm always kind of like the jovial, kind of jokey one. I mean, that's kind of like more of my personality. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do think when I'm comfortable, I genuinely am myself and I'm authentic and I'm really goofy and I like to mess with people. Very
Yeah.
talkative.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is nice because like when we first started working together, you probably didn't notice me as like a super talkative, like jovial guy. I was kind of like playing it safe because I'm like, I don't know these people. Same thing when I first started working at the bar. Like I even talk. There's an episode where we talk about it where I'm like, I'm not gonna tell anybody about the podcast. I'm not gonna tell anyone about anything. Everyone knows everything. They know all of it.
Oh, well, can I just say, when the first day that we were on the job, I was kind of annoyed because I felt like you were trying to make friends with everybody, and I didn't want anything to do with you.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So I was like, oh God, this guy. And like I was purposely on my guard. I was like, no, I am not talking to that guy
And then I
at all.
snuck my way in.
Yeah. So no, I think that's really interesting because yeah, I remember that specifically. I was just like, oh man, this guy is gonna talk and talk and talk and I have nothing to say. Cause I think like for me, like I think that is my character.
I
Right?
think that is a defense mechanism for me,
Absolutely.
though.
Yeah.
I try and friend you because if I'm friends with you, you can't attack me. You have no reason to be mad at me. We're friends, you know?
Oh.
So
Well, that's a defense mechanism for me too, because that way I don't have to break a relationship if I don't like you.
mm,
Right? So I give me time, give me however much time, and if I decide you're worthy
yeah.
of my friendship, then I'll come to you. But
There's a whole knighting ceremony. It's really weird.
no, but I mean that's like it's really interesting, and I mean I think that's so cool to have the opportunity because I think one of the things that is really helpful for me personally, and I hope that others get a chance to do this as well as they listen and kind of just think about the thoughts or whatever. But it really does give me a chance to kind of analyze things. Like I would have never thought of that beforehand,
Yeah.
right? Like I just said, and there's so many moments like that in this podcast, and I find huge value in that, and I am personally very, very appreciative of that opportunity because it has led to some, like, I would have never thought of that as a defense mechanism,
No,
right? I just thought of that as like Hylan just
this guy's too talkative.
being Hylan.
No.
Yeah. Or yeah, like you being you. So I just think that's amazing. I just think that's so cool.
Well, about this defense mechanism, thank you, I guess. This I don't know why I've always done it. I think like, in speaking of the sphere of influence, whatever, the first time we ever talked about it, it's not available on YouTube. So if you want to check it out, it is available on Spotify. You gotta go like it's maybe like the fourth episode or something like that. And we are gonna revisit the topics in the book. So we will do a refresher coming soon.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
in the episode, I talk about my experience with the lacrosse team and how this sphere of influence didn't really accept me and whatnot. And I think now is kind of like a default if I'm in a situation like I want to be friendly with people. And I've never been the guy that's like, I don't care. Like I don't care if you don't like me. I'm a cool guy. I'm chill because to me, I always worry that like if I come across as that, I'm like, oh, no one's gonna like me. Like I'm gonna be the guy that everyone's like, that guy's just like thinks he runs the world or whatever. And in that situation I was talking about at the bar, like I was also hyper aware about how I wasn't really talkative and I wasn't being myself around these people because I just was quiet. I was just kind of analyzing everything. And people would try to like make conversation with me, but like they didn't really know me as well. So I couldn't really like open up. I like tried to a little bit, but it just wasn't going my way. And I just was kind of like, Rowan, don't sweat it so much, you know. But ultimately, I think I usually try to be like very kind and open with people. I've never given people a cold shoulder, like unless I really didn't like you, then I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna talk to you.
Well, okay, so that makes me ask another question. Is being the kind of reserved, kind of standoffish Rowan, you say that's not really you, but I think at this point that is, right? Because you're doing in the moment what's best for you
Mm,
as you perceive it,
mm,
right? And
no,
so I think,
I will
yeah,
say, in reality. So, for instance, I'm going to talk about comedy real quick, but it's going to relate to this. So a big thing is I've been doing stand up. It's been going well. But a part of it is I need to kind of figure out my voice, right? How I'm going to approach comedy and whatnot. So in all honesty, I think I'm a bit of a dick. I think I truly am. Like deep down inside, like not like I put people down, but like I see things about people and I know how I could make fun of them. Not in a bullying sense. I never want to put people down because I was bullied myself. But I know how to tease people and kind of like nudge them in a playful way. And so at the comedy club, I have been wanting to roast all of the comics that go up. Um, just because I think it would be fun for me. And I think that they would get a kick out of it as well. Welcome, Lancelot. And so, one thing, like, I don't do it because I'm afraid that I need to just like talk about myself and talk about what I'm doing and making fun of myself because I don't think I have like the balls yet to do it. And that kind of ropes into what you're saying is like around people, like, I also kind of like want to be not as and when I say the word a dick, it's not to bully people. It's to just kind of like be a smart ass,
mm,
be kind of like a little like, really, dude? Like, come on. And I'm starting to find that when I get comfortable, but when I come out the gate, I come across as the most nice because I think that it'll get people to accept me more than if I do what I actually want to do, which is be kind of an ass.
well, you know what's really weird is I'm listening to this and it seems as though we take the exact opposite path, right? So I'm always worried about people liking me too much. Like
Oh.
I don't like you. I don't want you to like me.
Hmm.
So like I want you to be a little bit terrified the first time you meet me, right? Like and then as you get to know me, you're like, "Oh my god, this dude's like a big huge teddy bear."
There's nothing
Like
scary about him.
yeah, there's really don't get me wrong, there's scary stuff about me for sure. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's like the exact yeah, so I in the beginning, like when you said you want people to like you, I'm the exact opposite.
You're like, don't
I
like me.
don't want you to like
No.
me and I want you to give me a chance to like analyze you and like see what you're about and see what the reality is and then like if it's worth it I'll maybe like allow you like give you the opportunity to get to know a little bit about me but nah that sounds horrible but I just like that it's so interesting like to hear the two
Yeah.
different approaches because it is almost exact opposite ways like you you go from being nice to being
Kind of an ass.
yeah and
And
I
you go
go
from being
from
an ass
yeah
to being nice.
yeah kind of
Yeah.
yeah
One specific example of this kind of situation of me being really friendly instead of kind of being what I truly might feel, being an ass or whatnot, is I have had situations where,
I think we need to stipulate that a little bit, like ass in a really nice way.
yeah, like I think that's the thing. Like,
Like it's not, it's like negative. There's a negative connotation to that.
yeah,
You do it really well and fun, and like people enjoy it.
thank you.
Yeah.
I kind of do it like one of my comedic heroes is Don Rickles. Don Rickles is an old school comedian. He was able to make fun of people to their face and have them enjoy it and it be funny
Yeah.
and laugh together.
Yeah.
That's my goal. It's never to put people down or ostracize them and be like,
Yeah.
you're not a part of the group. Get out of here. It's always to basically look at yourself and be like, laugh at who you are as a person,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Which I do about myself all the time. And it's something I like to just kind of point out. Like, don't take yourself so serious, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you might think you're this 6'8" tall, brooding man. Like, come on. You laugh like a little girl, you know,
Yeah,
like
that's
whatever it
true.
is, right?
Right.
And so I've had situations where someone will like try and strike up a conversation with me, or they'll like crack a joke, and I don't find it funny, and I don't want to continue the conversation because I'm a nice guy. I will continue it, or I'll laugh
Oh.
at their joke. And like I had something the other day where someone was, you know, they were talking to me that like Justin Timberlake was playing at the bar, and this person, you know, looked at me and was like, I was kind of like nodding my head. He's like, "You like Justin Timberlake?" And I just was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh." And I wanted to be like, there's so many different ways I would have ended this conversation, but I was like, I'll be nice. What kind of music are you into? And I just like started a conversation. And instead of being like kind of roasting them for how terrible of an attempt, or there's one time where I was out and this guy who I kind of know started chatting with this girl and he was flirting with her and I was right in front of him. And I wanted to be like, dude, you're terrible at this, like in front of them. I didn't do that, of course. But and that sounds bad, but like I would do it in a more teasing way. Yeah, it's interesting
Well,
because
you know
like
what's really funny
yeah,
is I would do it in a non so teasing way. I would be like, buddy, not happening. Really, really bad at this. Like you need to like step away. Yeah,
like
I'm good.
we had a situation right where I was at the bar and there's these girls that were a friend of one of my co-bartenders and they were asking me, they found out we had a podcast and they were asking me about and all this stuff and like what's it about, all this stuff, and I told them and they're like, I'll give it a listen. And this is one of those situations where I was actually being myself. I just looked at them and I was like, no, you won't. You won't. And
Yeah.
they're like, no, I will. And I went, you won't.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't know how many people tell me that and then don't listen to it or tell me their review of it. And I was like, okay, do you listen to podcasts? And she was like, yes. I go, what's a podcast you listen to? And she was like, I was like, name 5. She named her first one. It was called Call Her Daddy, which is a podcast, very popular. It's
Yeah.
on Spotify and whatnot. And then I was like, anything else? And because Call Her Daddy is an easy one. Like everyone knows that name. It's like saying, I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience. Everyone's heard of Joe Rogan's podcast. That doesn't mean everyone listens to it on a regular basis. And
Right.
she's like, I listen to audiobooks. And I go, that's not the same thing. That's a book in audio form.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's the same thing as a podcast. I'm like, it's not. A podcast is a conversation. An audiobook has a script. And I was just being like a really big smart ass. And I was having fun doing it because I was like, I don't care if you like me or not. I'm just going to do this and be myself. And sometimes, like, I will be honest, even with my father, I've pushed the line. There's a lot of times when I was younger and I would poke the bear and tease, and I poked the bear too hard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, as a kind of correction to that, I try not to overstep. But this is interesting that we do have the opposite approach.
Well, and a lot of times, for me, I've gotten in trouble because I have been joking,
Mhm.
but I've said it in this deadpan, just like,
Tone.
yeah, just like, yeah, super funny, dude.
Yeah.
And it's been taken the wrong way and just been super hurtful and like
Yeah.
shut down conversations and just had really bad consequences. And like in my heart, I'm just like, oh, like
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
But like just the outer exterior,
Well, here's my
nothing to counteract
here's my
that.
question to you. Do you think you can actually do the reverse?
Be nice.
Do you think you can be nice and goofy out the gate? And do you think I can be kind of, a dick out the gate and still get the same response that we do? I don't know.
Oh, people, for me, yes, people want to be my people want to be my friend more than I want to be their. So I could be, yeah. My answer to that is yes.
See,
But
I don't know if that's the case for Rowan.
I don't I don't I don't want I mean I really am very guarded, and I I'm sorry to say this, but I don't want to be your friend. And I don't find a lot of people worthy of being my friend. And I only have X amount of time and energy in a day. And I don't a lot of people annoy the heck out of me just with things that are very normal, like texting and stuff. If people text me too much, I'm just like, nope,
Yeah.
you're not on my
Yeah.
you're off my list. If people want to talk to me on the phone, like if it's more than a minute conversation, that's too. I mean, there's just there's just and that's just my
I've pushed that boundary for
that's
Hylan.
my eccentricities, right? It's just but that they're very clear and they're very kind of like clear cut and probably pretty well known at this point. But yeah, like for me, I
So
find
with
it exhausting.
that standpoint of like not, and I'm not trying to like put words in your mouth, but like not necessarily trying to like be liked by a lot of people,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
I am kind of the opposite of that as well. Like I do try and be liked by a lot of people. I don't know why. Again, it's part of that defense mechanism, I think, and just like a feeling of like if you like me, then I'm in a safe space.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
As you've grown in self knowledge, like during this past year, two
yeah.
years, do you think your desire to be liked by a lot of people has changed?
I think so. For instance, like when I first went to the comedy club recently and like had the best success, I went up going like, I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm doing this for me. If it's funny, people will laugh. If they don't, they won't. And it'll be fine. And I really didn't care. But when I first ever did it, the clip in Chicago,
Mm,
the whole mentality of mine was like, please, please think I'm funny.
mm,
And if you have that mentality, you're not going to be funny. Trust me, I wasn't. Um, and so like I do think it's changed, but like that scenario I was telling you about in that outer sphere recently at that bar, I was cognizant of it. Like I was like, I'm not being as like charismatic and goofy as I usually think I am. And I also wasn't really kind of like teasing people like I wanted to. I was kind of afraid to because to tease people, like there has to be a certain level of trust in my mind, right? Like
yeah.
for instance, if I go up to a stranger and I just start giving them a hard time,
Yeah.
they might be like, "Hey man, I don't know you. Ah, get out of here." And
Yeah.
I've done that before. There was like one time when I was working at Lifetime and some guy came up and I can't remember the exact story, but it was something along the lines like, "Hey, can I do this?" And the person they were talking to was like, "Yes." And I looked at them and I was like, "Absolutely not." Totally joking. They asked for like a completely normal thing and I was like, "No. There's no way we can do that." And they just kind of looked at me and had this super sassy response like that wasn't funny. And I was just kind of like, okay, all right. And it happened like twice in a row. And I was like, man, these, and I didn't, I was like, is this Minnesotans? Is it just this? Granted, I was working at an extremely rich athletic country club with not the most goofy, fun, laid back people, very
No.
uptight, pretentious individuals. So,
Well, and that expect like when they ask for something, they
yeah,
expect
then I'm
it.
like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I like to give people a hard time. And like people at the bar, like there was one time where there was a group of like lawyers at the bar. They were getting drinks and whatnot, and I was their server, and I was kind of messing with them. And they were like, I walked up to the table. I was like, "Hey guys, do we need anything else?" And they were like looking around. They're like, "Should we leave? Should we get another drink?" And I just was like, "I think you guys should." And they all laughed. I thought it was funny because I was like totally being like a kind of a dick or an ass, but not in a way that I was like they could tell I was joking,
Mm,
right? But that takes like a certain personality trait of that you have, the person that I'm teasing, and like trust. So I think that's why I always go like I have to be super nice to you so that I can be myself with you. Because if you trust me and you like me, then I can come out the gate and kind of be teasy and a jerk. Not a jerk. I can't think of the right words for it,
yeah,
you know?
it's not a jerk.
Yeah. What would you how would you describe it? Because I clearly can't find the words.
Um uh maybe teasing, cynical comic,
Okay. Teasing cynical comic. Okay.
something like that.
Something like that.
I don't know.
Well, like
I just
even when we were recently with Pramod, Deepu, Satya, and yourself
yeah.
celebrating, kind of like the birthday extravaganza, I wanted to give Satya a lot of crap because he's terrible at building fires, and he was really pissing me off. I was like, Satya, get the hell away! You can't use the axe. You have no idea how to use this axe. You're not even wearing shoes right now, and you're swinging an axe. And then I'm like, hey, Satya, we have this whole thing of logs. And he grabs the biggest tree you can possibly find. I'm like, Satya, we don't need this.
Well, I think you did end up axing the tree, though. Did you not?
I did, but I had shoes on and it was my axe that I brought. Actually, not even mine. It was my father's. But he was
Yeah.
like, let me see. And I was like, Satya, no.
He's very helpful.
He is. And like, that's the thing. Like, I wanted to tease him, but I wouldn't want it to come off as like, hey, man, nobody wants your help. Get away from me.
Well, and you have to be a little bit careful. And I think this is where like tuning into social cues and just being able to read situations, which I think you are very, very good at. And hopefully this was part of your equation. But English can be lost on Satya a little bit.
Yeah.
And things can be misconstrued or just not registered at all.
Yeah.
So that was a wise decision on your part.
Yeah, and I think that's also why like I do really well with being hyper aware because I can tell when I can tease people.
Yeah.
But to get there, I feel like sometimes I have to like create a certain level of trust.
No, I think just by association, it would have been fine if you had, but I don't think it would have gone as well for different reasons than the lack of trust or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one of many strengths that you have is that you are able to kind of read people and read the specific situation. Because even like for me, like I think that I've gotten better throughout the years, but I think there's certain times when you can mess around with me and certain times when you can't. Like the students are well aware. Like when like it's rare, but there are times when it's like, nope, I've come to the end.
Yeah.
It's no more joking around because it's a lot of times it's like in this podcast, it's laughter, it's being goofy, whatever. But there will get to points where the kids will be like, whoa, what the heck just happened? And it's like, nope, it's over. You reached the end. Now we just, I talk, you do.
And that's what I found with my dad. So like my dad he inherently is a very goofy person. Like, you know, he has the hard shell exterior, like he's intimidating, etc.
Yeah.
But honestly, he just wants to have fun and be goofy, which is kind of a lot of the traits I get from him. But with him, when I was younger, I would be like, oh, he likes to be funny and goofy. Like, I'll tease you, you tease me. And then there were times where I was met with a bear and it was like a complete shutdown of like, oh, no. It's over. Now I've stepped into the danger zone.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to get out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I did get out, but other times I got stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, that's the danger. I mean, that's the cool thing about dealing with humans is you're always trying to walk that line, right? And I find that fascinating.
Yep.
Like I find that's the reason that I enjoy doing this podcast so much and just kind of working in the field that I work in because it's a constant study, right? It's a constant trying to figure out like where is the balance, where is the line, like when do you walk up to it and when do you cross it and things like that. And it's fascinating to me, but it's a never ending study for sure. And it's something that is, and it's something so valuable. Like the more knowledge, like hopefully if people do listen to this podcast, they find knowledge that is actually beneficial to them in navigating humans, relationships, life, work, all of that. Because
I think that's kind of like one thing that I personally feel, I think you might also agree with, but you can speak for yourself. But like I have kind of tried to become a professional at dealing with human beings. Like comedy, all of the jobs I do now are very customer service oriented and like how I interact with people. And I'm very cognizant of it.
Yeah.
It comes with the hyper awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially with comedy, like part of why I like stand up is it kind of does give me a platform where I can get up on stage and I can mess with you
Mm,
because like that is an acceptable place to do it.
yeah.
I do it with friends that I know because I've created that trust.
Yeah.
But like I think that's also what we talk about on the podcast a lot is this our hyper awareness of what's going on and just kind of communicating about like why people do the things they do, like explaining or justifying like where that comes from and whatnot. And I've learned a lot from you and especially about the cases you've talked about with students that you have or people that you have worked with and how they interact with it. Like, for instance, we were talking today about just the idea of how you knew this person and how they dealt with someone that was very kind of like aggressive. This isn't in the workplace, but like just in life. And they just like always wanted to be respected. And we are having
Mm,
that conversation.
yeah.
And I learned a lot from that conversation because I have been in that situation. And I start to like really think about like, oh, so like, why do I do that thing? And it's just this study of human behavior, I think.
Well, I think that's the value. Like, I think like bringing it back to the beginning point is that's the value of being hyper aware.
Yeah.
Because with that hyper awareness, you gain more knowledge and you seek out more knowledge. And the more knowledge that you have in dealing, well, with anything really, but in my case, in your case, in dealing with humans, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately, that's kind of the goal for me and for like the reason that I do this podcast is because I just want people to be successful with themselves, but also like successful, like let's just be successful with each other,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the more we're able to deal with each other effectively and kindly and like in ways that are positive, the better off we all are.
Yeah.
So
Well, with that being said, gang, I think I like this episode. This was a good one. I appreciate you guys watching and listening. We both do.
yeah, I do. I was gonna
Yeah,
say like
I'm the only one that appreciates it.
I
He
appreciate
doesn't
it too.
want new friends.
I don't want to be your friend, but I do appreciate
But
you.
subscribe. No, with that being said, if you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at NopeOpePod@gmail.com. The book is available in the podcast description for now. Also, by the way, if you saw this in the background and you've made it to this video, Hylan has a bunch of artwork that he is thinking of selling and whatnot.
Oh,
And there's
please.
an episode that has either been released or not been released, which you should check out, where we display all them. And you can possibly buy them by either emailing him or commenting below, and we can get in contact with you. But with that being said, we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.